Hey everybody, welcome to the Mortgage Mastery Mashup Sales Training. See, the thing is, I'm a nerd, so I consume a lot of great content and I love sharing it with you. Over the past couple of weeks, I've listened to several excellent training seminars that kind of tied into each other in some intriguing ways. If you give me a little more time, I'll share the best parts with you, then add in a couple of thoughts of my own to tie it all together. Does that sound cool? All right, here we go. We're going to kick this off with an interesting clip from Brian Stevens over at the National Real Estate Post, posting daily content for all of us to listen to, be entertained by, and learn a little bit.
Clients.
About 1 in 3 non-homeowners, 31%, say they're knowledgeable about the home buying process, but 62% wrongly think it's required to put down 20% on a home, and 66% mistakenly believe buyers pay their agents' commissions fees.
Well, hell, that's not a promising start, now is it? The people who think they know clearly don't know based on the rest of what Joanna said. And as far as buyers' commissions, well, that's going to change in the future, but another show for another day. Because what really got me was the 20% down thing. And it does beckon the very simple question. Why isn't answering that question ground zero for every loan officer and real estate agent-based video that I've ever seen? It's nowhere. Hey, you don't need 20% to put down on a house. Hell, you don't even need 5%. Moving on to the next point. And finally,
despite their personal experience, many homeowners remain baffled by the home buying process, with the average American only purchasing a home every 8 years. It's easy to forget specifics or be confused by misinformation. For example, homeowners, 46% of them, are just as likely as non-homeowners, 44%, to believe that sellers always pay closing costs for the buyer. About 60% of homeowners compared to 62% of non-homeowners also wrongly assume the seller is required to complete all repairs that the buyer requests after an inspection.
I'm going to go off script here for a second. This is kind of interesting to me because we look at this and say, yeah, well, you buy in different markets, there's going to be different concessions, if any at all. But if our buyers and our sellers have to concede in different markets, why don't we as lenders and real estate agents realize that we have to concede and change in those different markets as well? A lot of us are stuck trying to run our business as if it was 2020 and it's not. We need to change our business just as buyers and sellers need to change their expectations. It's the nature of the landscape of our industry, constant flux.
Which this is a very interesting and poignant example of the Dunning Kruger effect in action. What is the Dunning Kruger effect, you may ask? As defined here by Wikipedia, the Dunning Kruger effect is a cognitive bias in which people with limited competence in a particular domain overestimate their abilities. Some researchers also include the opposite effect for high performers, the tendency to underestimate their skills. In popular culture, the Dunning-Kruger effect is often misunderstood as a claim about general overconfidence of people with low intelligence instead of specific overconfidence of people unskilled at a particular task. You see this a lot of times with people that are very good at one particular thing, thinking they're super smart at everything. Never see that in real estate. The Dunning-Kruger effect is usually measured by comparing self-assessment with objective performance. For example, participants may take a quiz and estimate their performance afterwards, which is then compared to the actual results. The initial study was published by David Dunning and Justin Kruger in 1988. It focused on the logical reasoning, grammar, and social skills. Since then, other studies have been conducted across a wide range of tasks. They include skills from fields such as business, politics, medicine, driving, aviation, spatial memory, examinations in school, and literacy. One of the classic examples of the Dunning-Kruger effect is a survey in which something like 85% of people rated themselves as being above average at driving. I mean, think about it. Who's going to rate themselves as below average intelligence? Though, mathematically speaking, half of us are. Another example is a real study involving college professors. In that study, 94% believe they were above average teachers. 94% believe they were above average. Some of them had to be math teachers, right? This is showcasing the prevalence of the effect even among highly educated individuals. The Dunning-Kruger effect can lead individuals to believe they already possess a high level of expertise, causing them to become complacent. As a result, they might not seek out further training, education, or feedback, stunting their growth and development. And I think we are suffering this in our industry right now. There are a whole bunch of people that made a lot of money over the last couple of years and think they are super smart because they made a lot of money over the last couple of years. So they think they're smarter than everyone else. And now you're using those smarts to point to all the reasons why you aren't getting business, why you aren't successful today. And oh yeah, we're definitely going to talk about that today. So let's see what Brian has to say about the mortgage world today.
Art.
So home ownership has become somewhat of a national obsession, with more than half of Americans, 53%, looking at Zillow listings at least once a week and 29% looking at listings at least once a day during the home search process.
Didn't see that one coming. Half of the country is looking at homes? That alone is surprising. I mean, and they're doing it on Zillow. That's even more surprising. And basically 30% of everyone is looking daily. Now that kind of explains how Zillow was able to sell 137 million leads on 5.7 million properties that sold.
Which tells you that people still want homes. They want to buy their first home. They want to move up to a better home. Hell, they want to move over there somewhere. They just need to know how. And here's the deal.
As they learned more about the real estate market, 63% of home buyers had to adjust their priorities and 65% had to adjust their budget.
Not buying it at all. That's a bunch of crap. It's bull. It's too low. This just tells me that the other 47% have no clue about their finances. Everybody's going to need to change their finances around in order to own a house in this market.
And it's our jobs as mortgage and real estate professionals to educate them on why it's still a great idea to buy and how to do it intelligently. As Brian showed, people want new homes. And many moons ago, Tony Robbins taught us people buy with emotion, then justify it with logic. We just have to do a better job about it. We need to find ways to be influential in this new market, which is exactly what we are talking about today. Because I have some bad news for you. The white knight isn't coming to save you. The giant rate drop isn't coming anytime soon. We aren't really on the brink of a recession. I mean, look, there were literally millions of people who had thousands of dollars to go see Taylor Swift in concert. Go to Vegas. You'll see people waiting in line to spend $20 on a drink that they probably paid $40 to get into the bar. People are just going to keep spending money. And there isn't a refinance boom coming. Rates would have to drop to something like 4.5%, right around there, for more than 20% of homeowners to see benefit from a rate term refinance. And it's not coming. Sorry to tell you this, rates are going to be pretty close to what they are right now for a while. Probably a year or so at least. But let's look at the market a different way. We need to look at relationships like a housing crash. So let me explain, because that sounds weird. Let's pretend that I have one of those big Thanos glove things like you saw in the movie, that I can just snap, and I just created another 2006 era housing crash. Boom, values just dropped 40%, 50%, 60% across the board. What would you do? Would you look to buy more homes? Would you go out buying homes? Would you look at buying some cheap land out on the edge of town? I mean, the conventional wisdom says that's dumb. There's a housing crash. Everything's going down. You're going to get screwed. You won't be able to build anything forever on that land you bought. Well, relationships are kind of a housing crash that's going on right now. The same wisdom is telling a whole bunch of you, why would I kill myself talking to a bunch of realtors right now? None of them have any business anyway. Well, that is exactly the reason why you need to talk to them right now. Because that is the cheap land on the edge of town right now. It might not pay off for a while, but if you believe in your town, it will come back. It will pay off. The beautiful part is you don't have to buy this land with cash. You buy it with attention. You buy it with ideas. Be that person that is there for your referral partners through the thin so you can be there through the thick. But here's the thing. You have to go to the edge of town. That means you have to go past the things your competitors are doing. You have to deliver more value. You can't just call up and be like, got anything for me today? You got anything for me today? I sent you a flyer. I dropped off a flyer. I sent you a postcard. No. You have to bring help. You have to bring ideas. You have to make more calls. You have to be more helpful. Bring them more ideas. Why, you ask? Well, let's check in with Carl White from the Mortgage Marketing Animals as showcased on MBS Highway.
Thing happen. And the one thing that I found, if we want to close more loans, I tell you, the most brilliant thing that I've ever been taught is this simple little math here. And it's offers minus no's equals money. And what that means is if we want to make more sales, right, we want to close more loans, we just simply need to make more offers, right? It's just that easy. And we'll talk about what an offer is, but just make more offers. If you make more offers, you'll make more money. Now, another thing about the offers, though, is if we make more offers, we'll get more no's, right? It's a percentage thing. And I know early in my career, I'd focus on how do I keep from getting the no's? How do I keep from getting no's? I don't want to get any no's. How do I keep from getting the no's? And I'm going to tell you, there's only one way to get less no's, and it's to make less offers, right? That's it. In fact, there's one way to guarantee you'll get 0 no's whatsoever, and that's make no offers, right? You make no offers, you'll make no money, though. And so I think we have to focus on this, is that in everything we do, just simply make more offers. Let more people know what you're doing. Ask for the business more, and that's really the bottom line. And I sent out this survey about a couple months ago, I think, something like that. And I think we had something like, I don't remember, it was like 30,000 LOs responded to this, and I thought it was very interesting. And it was like, like when making our calls to agents, and we're going to talk about this in a minute. I know you guys got this thing that's really cool too, and I'll make sure everybody knows about. That when we're calling our agents, we look at, like some people said, we'll use a script at work. The number one answer was make an excuse not to call. Like, in other words, sit on the nail. And the second biggest answer was, I'd rather eat Brussels sprouts than call, which, by the way, I freaking love Brussels sprouts. I'm just going to go on the record. I'm one of those weird people, I guess. But if we stack these two on top of each other, we see the vast majority, like, make no offers, right? And then a follow-up question to this was, describe what a work week looks for you right now. And, the number one answer, I'm doing the best I can. I'm doing the best I can. First of all, we have to be very careful of doing the best I can, because doing the best I can is the opening line to everybody that loses. In other words, like if the concession speech for the politician that didn't make it, we did the best we could. The losing Super Bowl team, this is what they say in the locker room on the interview. Well, we did the best we could. And we have to understand there's a huge difference between doing the best we can and doing what it takes.
And that's just great. Well said, Carl. Going to the edge of town is doing whatever it takes to be successful. Wake up. You have to realize that every decent realtor has a loan officer. You have to earn your way in. You have to do something special. You have to be different. You have to make more offers. He's dead on right. There's the old saying that the best way to double your sales is to double your calls. Today, you will be lucky if you can get away with just doubling your calls, mostly because you're making 0 phone calls, so 0 times 2 is still 0. But even if you are making calls, you have to ignore all of those excuses on that chart. You have to accept that you are going to get more no's. Yeah, I get it. You can leverage social media. You can do drip campaigns. You can drop off flyers. You can use your CRM. But you are still not going to do as well as talking to people with your face, in person. Crazy idea, I know. You will always do better with that. Let's check back with Carl and see what he thinks you should do right now.
Have to really look at, like, figuring out what's the one single activity that we all do that makes us most our money. Like, what's the one single activity? And we have to figure out what this activity is. Now, when doing this, and I'd recommend, as everybody's watching this, like, literally write it down. Like, right now, write down what's the one thing you do. And I see Susan's here on the call. Susan, your one thing might be different than mine. It might be different than Bob's, and different from Carrie's, and different from Jennifer, all these different people on here today. And so I don't think there's one right thing, but you have to understand, what is your thing? And usually the easiest way to figure this out is look at your last 10 closings. And whether that was last week, last month, or the last 2 years combined, like whatever, what's the one thing that was in common with those 10 closings? Like, how did you bring the last 10 in, right? And figure out what that one single activity is. For most of my loan officers, again, this is not an answer for everybody, but for most of my loan officers, it's referral partners, right? Hanging out with referral partners and getting referrals. Part 2 of this question is, how many hours, minutes, if any, did you spend doing that activity last week? How many hours, minutes, if any, did you spend doing that activity last week? Meg, you want to guess what the number one answer, when we say, hey, what's the one single activity, and they write that down, then we say, all right, how many hours, minutes, if any, and getting ready for it doesn't count, right? The actual doing it is the only time it counts. You know what the number one answer for how many hours, minutes they did that last week, Meg?
0.
That's exactly right. 0 is the average answer. And so it goes back to that dog sitting on the nail. We have to actually do something about it. And we have to figure out what prevented us from doing the one thing that makes us most our money. Because one thing I found is we have this thing that we call the loan officer roller coaster is, we do activity A, which is bringing in the loans. And then we do activity B, which is closing those loans. And there's this something magical that happens at the red X is where we stop doing activity A so we can start doing activity B. The problem is when we're doing activity B, chasing conditions, putting out fires, like whatever those things are, who's doing activity on our behalf to bring the loans back in? And the answer for almost everybody is nobody, right? So nobody. So it's no wonder we're having trouble. If we can just focus on the activity A part, it looks something like this, where we never stop doing activity A. And the loan officers that are having a really, really, really great time right now, that's what they're doing is they're just focusing on activity A, and they have somebody or some people helping them with activity B so they can continue doing activity A. And so when you go, well, what exactly is activity A? I'll show you something shocking. I saw this stat and it blew me off the chair. So this was not my study, by the way. So the study said 67% of all purchase loans close with the loan officer the real estate agent recommended.
So that is where we need to be right now. You want me to save you some time on this exercise? Activity 1 is making more offers, which means more no's, which leads to a whole bunch of you heading back to that graph of excuses. But don't fall into that trap. Don't do it. You can't do it. You know it won't work. Right now, we have to get back to selling. The days of order fulfillment is over. We have to get back to sales. We have to sell people on why it makes sense to get involved with real estate today. The no's are just part of the game, but you can do things to get less no's. That sounds pretty good, right? Kind of thought it would. So we're going to pivot to some lessons that I learned a couple of recent calls from Trust Engine, aka Mortgage Coach, aka to us old heads, Dave Savage. They recently did a call with Phil M. Jones, the author of the book Exactly What to Say. On this training, Jones made a great point. Sales is earning the right to give a recommendation. This applies to selling a client on using you for the transaction or selling a referral partner on the notion that you are awesome. But let's say that again. Sales is earning the right to give a recommendation. He used the example of proposing marriage. You aren't going to propose to someone if you think it's like a 50-50 chance or 60-40. You want to know you're going to get that sale. So you should never pitch someone or sell someone until you can say, because you said reason 1, and because you said reason 2, and reason 3, I would recommend this solution. Did you catch that? Because you said reason 1, and because you said reason 2 and reason 3, I recommend this solution. Yep, that means you're going to have to get to know your client well enough to cite 3 things they said. 3 things that they said. If you don't know 3 things, you need to get to know them better. You aren't there yet. You don't know their problem well enough to give an offer. You haven't earned that right yet. This isn't a visit to your general doctor at the cheapest HMO on the list. You don't have just 18 minutes to figure this stuff out and give a proposal. Take your time. It's not like you got a bunch of transactions to work on right now. But per Phil Jones, the 2 most important skills you can have are empathy for their needs and being curious about their situations. So you have to be curious enough to ask as many questions as it takes to find out what they have going on. And you have to be empathetic enough to give a damn. Seems pretty simple, right? Well, it should, because it kind of aligns right up along with being a good person. Just saying. And speaking of things that align, according to Jones, once you hit the show me you know me button with your client, the situation changes to us versus the problem. Us versus the problem instead of me against you. Right now, the problem is I want to buy a house, but people say it's a bad time to do it. Well, once you are on the team, you can present some solutions. If you don't do this with your clients, take mortgage advisor off of your email signature and your dumb business card. You haven't earned that yet. And buddy, you have to earn that trust if you're going to pivot a homebuyer conversation to where it needs to be right now. If you remember the earlier video with Brian Stevens, he said 63% of homebuyers had to adjust their expectations and their budget to buy right now, which is probably a low percentage, like he said. And our customers don't like that. When you talk to people around the industry, the biggest objection to overcome is, I don't want my house payment to be that much higher than my rent is now, which is tough. However, on a different Trust Engine mortgage coach call, we had a great conversation with Denise Donahue, who taught how she immediately reframes this question over to, yeah, but what about your net worth?
And at the end of the day, we're trying to wow the clients and provide true financial. Oh, and the best part, Dave, is when I show them the rent, the short term and the long term of like, even if you buy today or you buy in March when your lease is up, your net worth is greater no matter what decision, no matter if they buy a 250 or a 300 or a 325. That net worth, when they see that number on that chart, that is the number, that's that visual anchor that they need to instill enough pain to be like, holy smokes, rent, my net worth is zero. Owning, my net worth could be anywhere between $300,000, $350,000, $400,000 more. Now you ask the question, what would you do with an extra $300,000 in 10 years or 15 years? And you start going into dreamland with them.
Did you hear that part? That part right there on the end? You go into dreamland with them. That's a pretty high level of trust. And dreamland is one hell of a good place to take a prospect if you want to turn them into a client and a friend. I really like that angle of bringing the conversation of net worth into it. Reframing conversations is such a critical skill when you're trying to influence people, whether it's influencing your clients, your referral partners, your kids, your spouse, or even trying to get out of a traffic ticket. It's all about influence. And you want to influence your clients to think about the increase in net worth, not the increase in their monthly payment. No matter how many times you post that stupid, when you rent, you pay 100% interest meme on Facebook, people aren't going to get it until you explain it to them. You have to earn their trust, then explain it to them. There are tons of tools you can use. Mortgage Coach teaches on their TCA or total cost analysis. MBS Highway has their buy versus rent tool. And I wanted to create something different for our people, so I built my own. Here's what it looks like. The purpose of this tool is to give our clients a quick way to wrap their brain around the profit potential from owning real estate. So a lot of people that have never owned a home don't realize the kind of money you can make from appreciation on it. So I wanted to drop a quick spreadsheet that can show people and spell it out in very simple terms exactly what the potential is. So we're going to start at the very top here and say, what is the purchase price of the home you're buying? So let's say we're starting out with a $400,000 house. So purchase price is $400,000. How much are you putting down as a down payment in terms of a percentage? So let's say it's 5%, which is $20,000 of your money. That's the second thing that we really want to illustrate as part of this exercise is the return on their money. Their money. That's what people on Wall Street, people in the investment world really want to pay attention to is how much am I making on my money? Now let's add in the closing costs. Let's say there's another closing cost of $5,000, which means that your total cash investment is $25,000. So with 5% down and $5,000 worth of closing costs, the seller is not paying anything in this instance. The borrower is coming in with $25,000 of their money. So let's look at the appreciation. So let's do some estimates here. So we're going to go to the next 6 years. Let's say that next year the home goes up at 8%. After that, it comes down to 5% the following year. Say it goes 6% the following, back up to 7, 8, 9. So some fairly reasonable predictions on home price appreciation. Actually, let's even get one more aggressive. Let's say nothing in that third year. So 8% the first year, 5% the next year, nothing the next. Year 4 would be 7%. Let's actually bring that down to 5%. Then we'll go 7% and 9% in year 6, which means that your $400,000 home would be worth $432,000 at the end of year 1, $453,600 at the end of year 2, Still $453,600 at the end of year 3, $476,280 at the end of year 4, $509,619 at the end of year 5. You get the gist here. That means in year 1, you'd make a profit of $32,000 on your $25,000 investment. So you invested $25,000 and returned $32,000. At the end of year 2, you will have made $53,600 on your $25,000 investment. At the end of year 3, again, $53,600 at the end of the $25,000 investment. So that's the big thing is we're talking about this $25,000 investment. Yes, some of you are going to go, well, yeah, but you have to make payments, but you would have had to make rent. So either way, you're making a payment on your living situation. So we're just going to kind of wash those out. This isn't an exact measure. It's to give the illustration of a couple of key points that we're going to get into this next section. So in the purple section, keep in mind that you did not invest $400,000 of your money into the purchase of this home. Let's read that again. You did not invest $400,000 of your money into the purchase of this home. Your real cash investment is a total of $25,000. So even though you get the full benefit of value going up, your initial investment doesn't change. So you actually make a 28% return of your money in the first year. So you actually make a 28% rate of return on your money in the first year. So this is the big thing that we need to get people thinking about, is the smartest, the wealthiest, the richest, the best investors in the world pay attention to rate of return. They pay attention to rate of return and net worth. So they actually make a 28% rate of return in the first year because they invested $25,000. The house went up $32,000, so 28% rate of return. After the end of the second year, you will have made a 57.2% per year rate of return. By the end of the third year, you will have made a 38.1% per year rate of return on your money. So as you can see, at the end of that sixth year, you will have made 82% return per year on your $25,000. If you talk to a hedge fund manager on Wall Street that said that you had an opportunity to show them something that would make an 80% rate of return, they would give you all of the money in the world. The largest Ponzi scheme in recent history was Bernie Madoff, who made billions of dollars, wasted billions of dollars by promising a 10% per year rate of return, which is ungodly. So let's look at how this compares. So we talk about what is the S&P 500 index. So the average annualized rate of return since adopting 500 stocks in the index in 1957 through the end of 2021 was 11.88%. So making 87% or anywhere near that is an astounding rate of return. Of course, this does not factor in the cost of selling it because we just have too much troubles estimating that. How much is it? Sometimes you get a listing agent to sell it for 1 point. If they get the other 3, they'll do it for 4 total. They'll do it for 3 total. Hell, you might not even sell it. You might keep it. It might be 15 years down the road before you do it. There's just so many variables. This is not a precise calculation, but let's say it pans out to only 60% per year. You're still doing astounding. So it also shows you the different effects that this rate of return can have by doing smart things in order to help your client. So instead of buying this house for $400,000, let's buy it for $400 and even let the seller do a little bit of extra. Buy it for $406,000 and they pay $5,000 worth of closing costs. So that means that $25,000 investment goes down to $20,300. Their rate of return in the first year is now 60%, second year is 84%, and then third year is 56% per year. Heck, people don't want to do, the interest rate is so high on a zero down loan. Those DPA rates are so high. Okay, let's validate that. got a 410,000. Say we buy that $400,000 house for 410,000. So our offer looks a little more attractive. We're gonna do 0 down, and the seller's gonna pay for those closing costs. Your cash investment is $0. Actually, we got to put in a number just so we can do a rate here. So they messed up the HUD. You have to bring in $1. You're buying this $400,000 house for $1. You actually make a 3.2 million % rate of return on your money that first year. So you can definitely see the power. This is ridiculous. It's a ridiculous number. It's a ridiculous estimation, but it shows the power of owning a home. So the question shouldn't be, is it smart to buy a house with interest rates where they are and what's going on? The question is, how many can I buy? Okay, let's bring it all together. First, Brian Stevens showed us that people don't know jack about home buying, but they want to buy. Second, Carl White taught us the key is that you have to make more offers. You have to. You just have to. You have to. But yeah, you're going to get some no's with that. You just have to live with that. Then Phil Jones taught us that you have to earn the right to give a recommendation. You have to earn the right before you sell. You do that by using empathy and curiosity to have them state 3 reasons they want to buy now. But you are going to have sticker shock over the price change. So you have to be ready to explain to them how debt ratios work, that if they do buy at this because of debt ratios, they can probably still afford to live, and then bring them to dreamland by anchoring their mind on the increase in net worth. You can do it. But let's leave you with one last thought from the mighty Carl White.
But Barry, I have to tell you, yes, we do. But I have to tell you, it goes back to how bad do you want it? How bad do you want it? So look, somebody told me the other day, and maybe this is a famous saying. I heard it for the first time about a month ago. He said, Carl, you have to pick your hard. So is getting up at 5:30 in the morning hard? Yeah. Is struggling to make my own mortgage payment hard? Yeah. Is telling my kids, hey, I can't afford college, so you're gonna have to go do a student loan. Is that hard? Yeah. So pick your hard. Like pick your hard. And for me, I'll pick the hard of making phone calls and closing a bunch of loans rather than, explain to my wife why she can't buy this new pair of red bottom shoes she was looking at last night, right? So pick your hard.